Alright guys, today we got another request, the Galaxy S10 versus the iPhone 14 here. So if you're in the market for an older flagship, the S10 is great. And if you're thinking about upgrading your S10 to a 14, you want to see how it compares, we're going to go over all the pros and cons. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let's talk about the price. iPhone will cost you $829 is what I paid for it. And then the S10 you could find for around 200 bucks, probably a little bit cheaper. I'll have that link down below. Let's go ahead and talk about the hardware. So I think the S10 still looks pretty modern, even compared to, you know, one of the newer flagships here. It's definitely the slimmer and lighter device in the hand. As you can see, the 14 just has those big massive cameras. That's kind of the trendy design you know, this year. And also, you will notice a big hardware difference. The S10 does have a headphone jack and it does have SD card support. So that's one of the two biggest hardware differences, and the iPhone obviously does not. And both these phones actually have IP68 dust and water resistant as well. I do like the design of both of these phones. I think they look great. I think the S10 is a little bit more comfortable because it's not as boxy as the iPhone. And yeah, so as far as hardware goes, I think they are two very nice looking phones. Alright, let's talk about speed on both of these phones. So you have iOS 16 and the Apple A15 chip on here. You also have 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. The S10, it does have the Snapdragon 855. It's running Android 12, One UI 4.1, and then you do have the SD card support, and you have 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. This version, I believe, is 8 gigs of RAM. So let's go ahead and just see how this translates to everyday use. We'll go ahead and just open up YouTube. S10 there, iPhone. They both 60 Hz displays, so they both feel, you know, pretty much the same in terms of smoothness when you're scrolling. Let's try Subway Surf. iPhone, S10. So typically the iPhone, it seems like it'll load up games a little bit faster, but as you guys can see there, not really that big of a difference there in terms of speed. Let's go ahead and try Subway Surf. I mean, not Subway Surf, PUBG. Alright, so when you actually are playing games on here, you will be surprised that PUBG is able to play at HDR Extreme on the S10. So I tell people these are great, you know, just cheaper gaming phones because they just do so well. So just across the board, if you guys want to check out my gaming tests that I have actually on this phone, playing Fortnite, Call of Duty, all that good stuff, it just does an excellent job with performance, guys. So it's just a great device, and it actually plays at the same settings as the iPhone 14 is able to also play at HDR Extreme. And again, they both feel super smooth, both very much playable, guys. So definitely it's very impressive on the S10's part as far as just being super cheap and still being able to play at high settings. Alright guys, let's talk about the screens on both of these phones. So obviously you can see the big difference here is the punch hole versus the notch here. I do think the punch hole still looks more modern than the notch on the 14, but as far as quality goes, these are two excellent screens. Also, another difference is that the S10 is actually curved and the 14 is a completely flat display, so that may or may not, you may or may not like that. Also, let's go ahead and talk about just the specs. So the S10 has a 1440p display with 550 for the PPI. It's dynamic AMOLED at 6.1 inches, and it just looks really nice, HDR10 as well. The iPhone does have Apple's XDR OLED display. It is also a 6.1 inch display, 1170 by 2532, 460 for the PPI. Like I said, they both look good. They both look very sharp when it comes to icons and stuff like that. The S10 is the higher resolution though. You can watch 2K content on this phone. So like I said, both screens are great. You sort of have to pick and choose because I know a lot of people hate the curved displays and stuff like that. So it just really comes down to it. But just looking at both screens, they both give off great colors, great resolution. It just comes down to the screen designs, honestly. Alright, so let's go and talk about the additional features here. So with the S10, something that I've always liked is that you do have two options. You have your in-display fingerprint sensor, and then you also have your face unlock with the front-facing camera. The iPhone only does the Face ID. Of course, there's no other, implementation there. But yeah, so I do want to talk about both of these phones having NFC. They both have IP68 dust and water resistant. They both have wireless charging as well. As far as the software goes, like I said, most people really love iPhones for iMessage, FaceTime, but a lot of people don't know Samsung has great software as far as Samsung desktop support, secure folders, also having the reverse wireless charging to be able to charge up another phone or some earbuds or something. So both phones have their little things, but there is something to note. The S10, this is its last major OS update, Android 12. It's currently in the security patch stages as well. It'll get 3 years of security patches. The iPhone, this phone will have a very long lifespan as far as software updates. So let's go ahead and check out these speakers. We both got them at max volume, starting with the iPhone. Yeah, the iPhone definitely hits a little bit harder with the bass. Yeah, the iPhone definitely slightly a little bit louder and also hits a little bit harder with the bass. Both phones have excellent speakers, but definitely I'll give it to the iPhone having a bit stronger speakers there. So let's go ahead and talk about the camera setups here, and I'll show you guys these side-by-side stills. You have a 12 megapixel standard and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K 60, and then you have a 12 megapixel selfie cam on here as well too that shoots in 4K 60. And on the S10, you actually have a triple camera setup. It's a 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, it does 2x, and then you have a 16 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K 60, and then you also have a 10 megapixel selfie on here that also shoots in 4K 60. So I'm going to show you guys side-by-side stills. Be sure to let me know, do you guys prefer the iPhone or the S10's pictures here? Alright guys, here's the video on the S10. 0.5. 2x. Alright guys, here's the video on the 14. Alright, 0.5. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about the battery situation here. So with the iPhone, you do have a 3,279 milliamp battery. It does have wireless charging with the MagSafe charging. The S10, you do have a 3,400 milliamp battery, and it does have wireless charging with reverse wireless charging, so you get that nice little feature there. The iPhone definitely will give you a slightly bit better battery life than the S10 for sure. You definitely will get better screen on time, but the S10, it can definitely last you up to 6 hours of screen on time for sure. I've never had this phone die on me in a day. So it's definitely an all-day phone, but like I said, iPhone definitely gonna get you that better screen on time. So overall, what do you guys think? Do you guys think it's a worthwhile upgrade, or what are you guys thinking? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.